The United Earth Space Station, Harmony, hummed like a giant silver wheel against the backdrop of endless stars. Through its transparent observation deck, Earth could be seen floating below, a beautiful blue marble wrapped in swirling white clouds. But today, nobody was looking at Earth. All eyes were fixed on the strange figure walking down the station's main corridor. Master Gray moved with the fluid grace of flowing water. His tall, slender frame and silver-tinted skin drew curious glances from the station's crew members. Each step he took seemed carefully measured, as if even walking was an art form to be mastered. Behind him followed a group of alien diplomats from various worlds, their excited whispers echoing through the corridor. "I wish to observe your warriors in training," Master Gray announced to Captain Rogers, his voice calm but carrying an unmistakable tone of authority. The station's captain nodded, though she couldn't quite hide her annoyance at the unexpected request. The group made their way to the station's training facility, where Earth's military personnel conducted their daily exercises. Through the reinforced windows, they watched as soldiers practiced their hand-to-hand combat techniques. Master Gray's large, dark eyes narrowed as he studied their movements. "Such primitive methods," he said, making no attempt to hide his disappointment. "In my 300 years, I have mastered combat forms from 30 different worlds. Your species still relies on such basic techniques." Captain Rogers straightened her uniform. "Our methods are effective, Master Gray. They've served us well in both peacetime and conflict." The alien master turned to face her, his silver skin shimmering under the station's lights. "Effective, perhaps against other humans, but in this vast galaxy, you must evolve. Your species has joined the galactic community. Your warriors must adapt." He gestured at the training soldiers with one of his 4 arms, each movement precise and deliberate. "Look at them. No flow, no grace. They move like machinery. This is not the way of true combat." A small crowd had gathered now, both humans and aliens, watching the exchange with growing interest. Master Gray raised his voice slightly, ensuring everyone could hear him clearly. "I propose a challenge," he announced. "Let one of your warriors face me in combat. I will demonstrate why the ancient combat arts of the galaxy are superior to your military training." The crowd burst into excited murmurs. Captain Rogers frowned. "Master Gray, this isn't necessary. We're here to learn from each other, not to prove superiority. Are you afraid your warriors cannot match my skill?" Master Gray's question hung in the air like a thundercloud. "I have trained champions on 12 different worlds. I have won the grand tournament of Kuvul 3 times. Surely, if your methods are as effective as you claim, one of your warriors would be willing to prove it." The alien diplomats behind him nodded in agreement. One of them, a short, reptilian creature, stepped forward. "The human species claims to be ready for full integration into the galactic community. Perhaps this challenge could prove their worthiness." Captain Rogers clenched her jaw. This was quickly becoming a diplomatic incident. She could see news drones hovering nearby, broadcasting the scene across human and alien networks alike. Refusing the challenge now would make humanity appear weak or cowardly in front of the galactic community. "I will need to consult with Earth Command," she said finally. "This kind of challenge has implications." Master Gray bowed slightly, a gesture that somehow managed to appear both respectful and condescending. "Of course. Take your time, Captain. I will be here for 1 standard month. More than enough time for your best warrior to prepare, though I doubt it will make much difference." As he turned to leave, his final words echoed through the corridor. "After all, how can you hope to match someone who has spent centuries perfecting the art of combat? Sometimes, the young must learn from their elders." The gathered crowd watched him go, his graceful movements making even his exit seem like a performance. In the training room beyond the windows, the soldiers continued their exercises, unaware that one of them would soon face the challenge of their life. The news of Master Gray's challenge spread through Space Station Harmony like wildfire. In the station's combat training room, Staff Sergeant James Smith continued his morning routine as if nothing had changed. While others talked excitedly about the Alien Masters Challenge, he methodically worked through his exercises. Smith. Captain Rogers' voice cut through the quiet rhythm of his workout. My office now. James wiped his face with a towel and followed the captain. In her office, several high-ranking officers from Earth Command waited, their faces serious. On the display screen behind them, footage of Master Gray's previous fights played in a loop. You've heard about the challenge? Captain Rogers asked. James nodded. Yes, Mom. The alien who thinks he's better than everyone else. That alien has won more combat tournaments than you've had birthdays, one of the Earth Command officers said. He's making us look bad, and the whole galaxy is watching. Captain Rogers leaned forward. We're considering accepting his challenge. Your name came up. Because I'm expendable? James asked, his face showing no emotion. Because you're the best we got, she replied. Your combat record speaks for itself. 3 tours in the Mars conflicts, 2 years in the Jupiter mining riots, and more successful peacekeeping missions than anyone else on this station. James looked at the screen, watching Master Gray's fluid movements. He's faster than me. Stronger too, probably. But you've got something he doesn't, Captain Rogers said. Real combat experience. Not tournament fights or practice matches. Real life-or-death combat. The room fell silent as James continued to study the footage. His plain face showed nothing of the calculations running through his mind. He wasn't handsome or impressive-looking. In fact, he looked rather ordinary. Average height, average build, short brown hair going slightly gray at the temples. The perfect soldier, unremarkable until the moment he needed to act. I'll do it, he said finally. Are you sure? One of the officers asked. This isn't an order. If you lose, it won't just reflect on you. It will reflect on all of humanity. James turned to face them. All due respect, sir, but that's exactly why I should do it. Master Gray thinks combat is about looking good and winning tournaments. Someone needs to show him what real fighting looks like. Captain Rogers smiled slightly. The match is in 2 weeks. We can delay if you need more time to prepare. No need, James replied. I'll keep to my usual routine. Just tell me when and where. As James turned to leave, Captain Rogers called after him. Smith, what makes you so confident? He's got centuries of experience. James paused at the door. Ma'am, in real combat, you don't win with fancy moves. You win by staying alive. And staying alive isn't about looking good. It's about getting the job done. After he left, one of the Earth Command officers shook his head. He doesn't seem very impressive. That's exactly what makes him perfect, Captain Rogers replied. Master Gray expects a warrior out of some martial arts video. Instead, he's getting a real soldier. Someone who's faced death not in tournaments, but in actual combat. On the screen behind them, Master Gray continued his elaborate display of martial arts mastery. Meanwhile, in the training room, James Smith returned to his exercises. No fancy moves, no elaborate techniques, just the same practical, efficient movements he'd practiced thousands of times before. In 2 weeks, the galaxy would learn an important lesson. There's a big difference between mastering the art of fighting and mastering the reality of combat. And James Smith had mastered the reality a long time ago. 1 week before the big match, Master Gray held an exhibition in Space Station Harmony's main arena. The stands were packed with both humans and aliens, all eager to witness the legendary martial artist in action. Camera drones buzzed through the air, broadcasting the event across the galaxy. Master Gray stood in the center of the arena, his silver skin gleaming under the bright lights. He faced 3 opponents at once, all of them champions from different alien worlds. What happened next left the audience breathless. The first opponent, a massive warrior twice Master Gray's size, charged forward. Master Gray seemed to float aside, his 4 arms moving in perfect harmony. In seconds, the huge alien was on the ground. pinned by what looked like nothing more than a gentle touch. The other two attackers moved in together. Master Gray's movements became even more incredible. He seemed to bend in impossible ways, his body flowing like liquid metal. One moment he was there, the next he wasn't. His opponent struck at empty air while his counterattacks landed with surgical precision. "Amazing," shouted an alien announcer. "Such perfect form, such mastery of the ancient arts. And this is who the humans think they can challenge." In the back of the arena, James Smith watched quietly. He sat alone, making small notes on a tablet computer. While others gasped at Master Gray's spectacular moves, James's eyes narrowed, studying the moments between the flashy techniques. Captain Rogers found him there. "What do you think?" "He telegraphs his moves," James replied, not looking up from his tablet. "All that spinning and flowing. It looks good, but it takes time. In a real fight, you don't get that time." He just took down 3 champions like they were nothing. 3 champions who play by his rules, James said. "Look at them. They're trying to match his style. That's exactly what he wants." On the arena floor, Master Gray had finished his demonstration. He stood in the center, barely breathing hard, while his defeated opponents were helped away. The crowd cheered wildly. "My friends," Master Gray addressed the audience, his voice carrying easily through the arena. "This is what true martial arts looks like. This is the perfection that comes from centuries of dedication to the combat arts." He paused, looking directly at the camera drones. "And in 1 week, I will demonstrate why humanity's primitive methods are no match for true mastery." The alien crowd roared with approval. Many humans in the audience looked worried. Their champion, James Smith, didn't even look impressive. How could he possibly stand against such skill? Later that day, news broadcasts across the station showed clips of Master Gray's exhibition. They played next to footage of James doing his regular training. Simple exercises, basic combat drills, nothing spectacular at all. "Are the humans serious?" an alien reporter asked. "They're sending this ordinary soldier against Master Gray. It's almost insulting." But in the station's training room, James continued his routine. He didn't watch the broadcasts. He didn't attend any more of Master Gray's exhibitions. He simply trained, the same way he had for years. "You could at least try to look more impressive," a junior officer told him. "Everyone thinks you're going to embarrass us." James racked his weights and stood up. In real combat, looking impressive gets you killed. You do what works. That's all that matters. As he walked out of the training room, he passed a group watching Master Gray's exhibition on a screen. The alien master was explaining how he had mastered the fighting techniques of 30 different worlds. James allowed himself a small smile. In 1 week, Master Gray would learn that there's a big difference between practicing techniques and using them when your life depends on it. And that was one lesson James had learned the hard way, over and over again. 3 days before the match, Space Station Harmony was bursting with visitors. Alien ships crowded the docking bays, bringing spectators and gamblers from across the galaxy. The station's corridors buzzed with different languages as beings from dozens of worlds placed their bets. "The odds are 50 to 1 against the human," the blue-skinned betting agent announced in the station's main lounge. "Master Gray's species has natural advantages. Their muscle fiber is 3 times denser than human tissue. Their reflexes are twice as fast. It's simple biology." Captain Rogers watched the betting with growing concern. In her office, the screen showed news feeds from 20 different worlds. None of them gave humanity much chance. "This has gotten out of hand," she told James during their daily briefing. "The Galactic Council is watching. Some members are saying this match will prove whether humans are ready for advanced combat training. Others think we should be restricted from certain military technologies if we lose." James sat quietly, his face calm. "They're making it bigger than it is." "Are they?" Captain Rogers brought up a classified file on her screen. "Look at this. Data on Master Gray's species. Their bones are nearly unbreakable. Their pain tolerance is off our charts. Even their skin is tough enough to stop small-caliber bullets. Everyone has a weakness, James replied. The tougher they are, the more they depend on being tough. They forget about being smart. A knock on the door interrupted them. A young officer rushed in, looking worried. Captain, you need to see this. Master Gray is making another announcement. On the main screen, Master Gray stood in his private training room. His silver skin rippled as he moved through a series of impossible-looking exercises. Tomorrow, he said to the cameras, I will do more than win a match. I will prove that humanity needs guidance. Their stubborn reliance on primitive combat methods puts them at risk in this dangerous galaxy. For their own good, they must learn to fight properly. Captain Rogers switched off the screen. He's not just trying to win anymore. He's trying to humiliate us. Good, James said quietly. Good. Captain Rogers stared at him. How is that good? He's thinking about making a point, about looking good, about proving something. James stood up. In real combat, that gets you killed. As James left the office, he passed through crowds of aliens discussing the match. Many pointed at him, some laughed. He ignored them all and headed to the training room. But this time, he found Master Gray waiting for him. I wanted to meet you properly, the alien master said, his 4 arms clasped behind his back, to understand why you would accept this challenge when you must know you cannot win. James continued his warm-up routine. Must be all that primitive human thinking. Master Gray's eyes narrowed. You mock me. I have trained champions. I have mastered arts your kind hasn't even heard of. My species is naturally superior in every way. Every way? James asked, still not looking at Master Gray. Then why do you work so hard to prove it? For a moment, Master Gray's perfect composure cracked. You dare. See you tomorrow, James said, turning his back on the alien master and starting his exercises. After Master Gray stormed out, Captain Rogers stepped from the shadows. That was risky, making him angry. James kept working. No, ma'am. That was necessary. He's used to respect, to everyone treating him like he's special. Tomorrow, he needs to be angry, needs to want to prove himself. Why? James finally stopped, turning to face her. Because angry people make mistakes, and in real combat, one mistake is all it takes. As night fell over Space Station Harmony, the betting continued. The odds against James got even worse, but in his quarters, the human soldiers slept soundly. Tomorrow would come soon enough, and when it did, the galaxy would learn what real combat looked like. The day of the match arrived. Space Station Harmony's main arena was packed to capacity. The air felt electric with tension as beings from across the galaxy waited for the contest to begin. Camera drones hovered everywhere, broadcasting the event to billions of viewers. Master Gray entered first. He wore traditional fighting robes that shifted colors with his movements, his silver skin gleaming under the bright lights. As he walked to the center of the arena, he performed a series of fluid movements that drew gasps from the crowd. Each of his 4 arms moved in perfect coordination, creating patterns in the air that seemed to defy physics. Then James Smith entered. He wore standard military training gear, simple black pants, and a gray t-shirt. No flourishes, no special movements. He walked straight to his position and stood quietly, hands at his sides. The contrast between the 2 fighters couldn't have been more stark. This is a contest under standard Galactic Combat Federation rules. The announcer's voice boomed. The match continues until one fighter submits or is unable to continue. No weapons are allowed. No lethal strikes are permitted. Master Gray bowed elaborately to all 4 sides of the arena. James simply nodded once to the referee. Begin. Master Gray moved like lightning. His 4 arms whirled in complex patterns as he charged forward, using a fighting style that made him appear to be in multiple places at once. The crowd cheered at the display of speed and skill. James took 2 steps back and shifted his weight slightly. Master Gray's first strike, A spinning kick that would have knocked out most opponents hit nothing but air. His second attack, a complex combination using all four arms, also failed to connect. James moved just enough to avoid each strike, never more than necessary. "Stand and fight properly," Master Gray demanded, his voice carrying across the arena. He launched into another series of attacks, each more spectacular than the last. His limbs became a blur of motion, demonstrating techniques that had won him countless tournaments. James ducked under one strike, sidestepped another, and blocked a third with his forearm. His movements were simple, economical, nothing like the flowing grace of his opponent. But still, Master Gray couldn't land a solid hit. The alien crowd began to murmur in confusion. This wasn't the one-sided display they had expected. The human wasn't fighting back, but he wasn't losing either. "You mock our sacred combat arts by refusing to engage." Master Gray spun into another attack sequence, his robes swirling around him. "Fight me." "This isn't a dance contest," James replied quietly, just loud enough for Master Gray to hear. "In real combat, you don't waste energy on looking good." Anger flashed in Master Gray's eyes. He launched his most impressive combination, a technique that had won him the Grand Tournament of Kavul. His four arms struck from different angles while his legs swept through complex patterns. It was beautiful to watch, a perfect display of martial arts mastery. But when the movement finished, James was still standing. He had evaded every strike with minimal movement, conserving his energy while his opponent wore himself out with flashy techniques. "Impossible." Master Gray panted slightly. "How are you predicting my attacks?" "I'm not," James answered. "I'm reading your body. All that spinning and flowing, it looks impressive, but it takes time. In real combat, time gets you killed." The crowd had fallen silent now. They watched as Master Gray's perfect composure began to crack. The human wasn't fighting the way he was supposed to. He wasn't following any of the forms or styles that Master Gray had mastered. Instead, James fought like someone who had learned in the real world, where combat wasn't about looking good or following rules. It was about surviving. And as the match continued, a terrible realization began to dawn on Master Gray. All his centuries of mastering martial arts might have taught him how to fight, but they hadn't taught him how to win. 10 minutes into the match, sweat gleamed on Master Gray's silver skin. His perfect moves had become less fluid, his techniques less precise. Frustration showed clearly on his face as he launched another complex attack sequence. James continued his simple movements, conserving energy while letting his opponent tire himself out. He hadn't thrown a single punch yet. He didn't need to, not when Master Gray was doing all the work for him. "Fight back," Master Gray demanded, his voice showing the first signs of strain. "Show me these human combat methods you claim are so effective." "Real combat isn't about showing off," James replied calmly. "It's about winning." Something in James's tone made Master Gray pause. For the first time, the alien master felt uncertainty creep into his mind. He had faced thousands of opponents, but none like this, none who simply refused to play by the normal rules of combat. In the stands, the alien audience had grown unusually quiet. They were used to seeing elaborate techniques, flowing movements, and spectacular displays of skill. Instead, they were watching something entirely different, a lesson in real combat efficiency. "You see," James continued, his voice still calm, "you're breathing hard. Your movements are getting slower. All those fancy techniques cost energy. In a real fight, energy is life." Master Gray's eyes narrowed. "You dare to lecture me? I who have mastered combat forms from 30 worlds." "Combat forms," James nodded. "But how many real fights have you been in? Not tournaments, not exhibitions. Real fights where the other person is truly trying to hurt you." The alien master attacked again, but this time his movements were angry, less controlled. His four arms lashed out in powerful but increasingly predictable patterns. James slipped past each strike, moving just enough to avoid damage. In real combat, James continued, ducking under a wild swing. You don't get second chances. You don't get to try your backup techniques. One mistake, and it's over. Suddenly, James changed his stance slightly. The shift was so subtle that most of the audience missed it. But Master Gray saw it, and for the first time in centuries, he felt something he had almost forgotten. Fear. This wasn't how fights were supposed to go. His opponents were supposed to match his techniques, to engage in the ancient dance of combat. Instead, this human was treating their match like a real fight. Your problem, James said, blocking a strike with his forearm, is that you've spent centuries learning how to fight, but I've spent years learning how to win. Master Gray launched into his most powerful combination, a sequence that used all four arms in perfect harmony, while incorporating 3 different martial arts styles. It was beautiful to watch, a true display of mastery that had defeated countless opponents. But halfway through the movement, James finally attacked. No elaborate technique, no flowing movement, just a simple, precise strike at exactly the right moment. Master Gray's eyes widened as he realized his mistake. His complex attack had left him exposed for a fraction of a second. In a tournament, that fraction of a second wouldn't matter. His opponents always respected the forms too much to take advantage of such a small opening. But this wasn't a tournament, and James wasn't fighting for points or glory. The human strike landed clean on Master Gray's jaw, snapping his head back. The alien master staggered, his perfect balance disrupted, his elaborate technique falling apart. And in that moment, as he tried to recover, Master Gray finally understood what real combat meant. But by then, it was already too late. James Smith moved forward, his movements efficient and deadly, ready to end the fight. The galaxy was about to learn why humanity's combat methods had survived countless wars and conflicts. Because in real combat, survival matters more than style. The arena fell silent as James moved in. His first strike had shaken Master Gray, but the alien master was far from defeated. With his superior strength and reflexes, he should still have had the advantage. But something had changed in the fight's dynamic. Gone were the elaborate techniques and flowing movements. Master Gray now fought desperately, trying to use his 4 arms to keep James at bay. But the human soldier pressed forward relentlessly, each step calculated and purposeful. Your strength means nothing if you're too tired to use it, James said quietly as he slipped past Master Gray's defense. Your speed means nothing if you telegraph every move. 3 quick strikes followed. Simple, direct hits to vulnerable points that Master Gray's complex fighting styles had never considered important. The alien master tried to counter, but his movements were becoming increasingly panicked. This is impossible, Master Gray gasped. I have mastered every known combat form. That's your mistake, James replied, blocking a wild swing and stepping inside Master Gray's guard. You learned forms. I learned to fight. The next sequence happened so fast that many in the audience missed it. James trapped one of Master Gray's arms, used the alien's own momentum against him, and applied a simple joint lock that he had practiced thousands of times in real combat situations. Master Gray's eyes widened as he felt himself being controlled by such a basic technique. He tried to use his other arms to break free, but James had positioned himself perfectly. The alien master's own strength and extra limbs now worked against him, increasing the pressure on his locked joint. Submit, James said calmly, or I'll have to show you what else real combat has taught me. For a moment, pride warred with pain in Master Gray's expression. Then, for the first time in over a century, he spoke the words, I submit. The arena exploded with shocked voices. Camera drones zoomed in as James immediately released the hold and stepped back. Master Gray slowly got to his feet, his silver skin dull with exhaustion, his perfect composure completely gone. How? He asked, genuine confusion in his voice. How did you defeat all my techniques with such simple methods? James straightened his plain training shirt. Because in real combat, simple works. Complex techniques fall apart when you're tired, scared, or hurt. That's why human warriors train the way we do. We don't train to look good. We train to stay alive. Master Gray was quiet for a long moment. Then, to everyone's surprise, he laughed. Not a bitter laugh, but one of genuine understanding. 300 years, he said, shaking his head. I spent 300 years mastering the art of combat. But you, in your short human lifetime, mastered something far more important, the reality of it. He turned to face the audience, his voice carrying clearly through the arena. I came here to teach humanity a lesson about combat. Instead, I learned one myself. These humans, they understand something we have forgotten. In real combat, survival matters more than style. Effectiveness matters more than elegance. Then, in front of the whole galaxy, Master Gray bowed deeply to James, not the elaborate bow of martial arts tradition, but a simple gesture of genuine respect. The impact of the match spread quickly through the galactic community. Within days, military leaders from various worlds were requesting to learn human combat methods. They had seen something valuable in the simple, efficient techniques that had defeated their greatest martial artist. As for James Smith, he returned to his regular duties the next day. When asked about his victory, he simply shrugged and said, "Combat isn't about being the best fighter. It's about being the last one standing." In the years that followed, humans and aliens would learn from each other, combining the best of both approaches. But the galaxy never forgot the day when a simple human soldier showed them the difference between mastering an art and mastering reality.